look at World Wide Web of nature, above and below ground. What is it? What does it do? How does it work? Okay. As humans, we are not separate from nature. We are it. We are nature. We are a biological creature. We've evolved since the dawn of time, and we are also entitled to be here, as long with everything else. Okay? We're not separate from this world. What's happened is that in Africa, in East Africa, so the scientists say, they'll probably find something later on in life and actually was somewhere else, but what's now called East Africa, about 2.5 million years ago, we as Homo sapiens developed ourselves, and we were part of the food chain. We were hunted and we were eaten. And so what happened then is that we kind of got together, and through communication, i.e. language, and cooperation, we then decided that we had the knowledge to defend ourselves like any other creature does. And so we walked around with big spiky sticks, and we started poking things, and it was all good. But with that cooperation, we then decided that actually we can get the better of some of this bigger hunters, these carnivores that used to hunt us. And so we got so successful at it that we generally wiped them out. And these were things like saber-toothed tigers, bears, crocodiles, all that kind of stuff. And if that was happening today, we'd generally just wipe it out and go, no, do you know what? We're not having it. I want to walk down through that village there and I'll be safe. I don't want anything hunting me. So we then became quite successful, and because we got rid of all our predators, we then grew in population, because there's nothing to keep your numbers in check. Like the same with the deer. You know, we got bigger and bigger. The moment you get bigger and bigger populations of something in a certain area, it needs to move out. So that's what we started to do. We travelled off in our little groups, and we became what we now know as hunter-gatherers. And off we went. And we spread and we spread and we spread. And so one day, some bright spark turned around and went, sod this, I ain't chasing them anymore. I know what I'll do, I'll keep a couple. And what we'll do is we'll keep them in a field or a pen, and I haven't got to chase them anymore. They're already there for me, I can have them. And so then we started to go, okay, well we need crops as well, why go, we'll just grow some crops. And so therefore you've then got, you know, a species now that doesn't need to travel so far, doesn't need to go, and you end up then getting settled. And we have these little settlements. The moment you do that, you're then no longer reliant upon knowing where these animals are, where they go, and what their natural movements are, because you're in control. And so therefore, you lose a tiny little bit of your connection to their way of being, the way that they naturally act in the world. Because you don't need to know, because you've already got them in these little boxes, and you can keep them and you can manage them and you can fish them out. So if you know anything about indigenous tribes around the world, there's a few left, not many. Yeah. Aborigines are one. Amazonians are another. There aren't many left, but they are out there. And one of the things that they still have in themselves as beings is that they understand intrinsically that they are part of the whole system, this nature. And they treat it as if there's a sacredness to it. You know, there's a rhythm that they follow. You know, you speak to an Aborigine, which now still goes on his walkabout, they know where everything is. They know what time of year things are around. And they never take all of it, because they know that if they do, when they go back next year or for their family, there's nothing left. It's gone. And so their survival and their way of life depends so much on this connectedness to the nature that they're in. And they understand that. The commercial world tried to tame these people, as they called it, and through these Amazonians, for example, with the logging and all the rest of it, they ripped their homes apart. These are where guys for millennia have taught their children about the medicines and the plants and things, and they're connecting them. And the big bulldozers come in and they rip it all out. And they say, I'll tell you what, we'll give you a job. Well, not all these guys are suited to this. And so you end up with big communities of people that have lost their identity and don't know what to do. And if you look at them now, you know, with the Aborigines and the Amazonians, you'll find that these guys are in real trouble because they're all on alcohol. Yeah. They're drinking booze, they've got nothing to do, they've lost their identity, their connection to nature. And that's a really sad thing. You know, it breaks my heart when I see it. And it's broken their communities. And so, you know, in this modern world that we live in, it's become very easy for us as humans to lose our connection to that world because we've got this modern thing around us and it doesn't work. And there are reasons for that, you know. And one of the reasons was, like I said, the guy in the beginning, the agriculture. There's no need for you to understand the seasons. There's no need for you to understand why stuff grows. There's no need for you to worry about where you're going to get your food sources from or your medicines from or anything else. You don't need to know. You can go to Tesco supermarket. And so you've lost again your knowledge and your connection to the world and to nature itself. The other thing that happened then, of course, as we all know, and this is one thing we do all know about, and that's the Industrial Revolution, that man got so clever that he thought, I'll make life easier for myself. And we became, you know, we got mechanisms and machinery and tried to just make life easier for ourselves and faster for ourselves by using these mechanisms to what we believe was to improve our quality of life and our success. And the last thing that happened was, and again, this is something that is a bit controversial, but it was also 2,000 years ago, was religion. Prior to religions as we call them today, the human being was tied to the seasons. They honoured the seasons, they understood the seasons, and they worked with the seasons. And they kind of just went with it and went, okay, and they flowed backwards and forwards. And then what religions did, they turned around and they gave out the, you know, prophets and the God and all the rest of it. And they put man above nature for a while. Yes, he was connected to it in the sense that it was a creation, but he was the top thing in this. It was put there for him. And so therefore, again, they lost their sense of belonging and sacredness to what life was, you know. And in the modern world now, I was speaking to David, the local vicar down the road, and they're now talking about creation and trying to reconnect themselves back to what this world is. They're understanding now that to separate yourself so far from it and make yourself above it all as a sense of entitlement is actually wrong, and that you need to come back to this world, as it were. Our physical, our mental well-being is intrinsically entwined to the natural world, because instinctively within yourself, through evolution and through process and through ancestral things, you know inside yourself that you are connected to all of this. You crave it. There's a craving inside most human beings now to get back to this area. You know? But this is something we're going to touch on a little bit later on when we're up in the woods. Okay. That's good. Okay. Biodiversity. Biodiversity is biological differences. That's what it means. That's what biodiversity is. And you need this biodiversity. You need the variety of life. Because with that variety of life, what you end up doing is you can sustain, it can sustain itself. Those interconnections between the varieties works better because there's more options for you to succeed. The smaller the biodiversity, one little thing goes wrong, disaster. When you've got a massive biodiversity, if a little tiny bit changes, the rest of it can probably cover for it and look after it and make sure that it all works again. Okay. We as human beings, we rely upon this diversity for our own survival. You know, we're intrinsically tied to this. So, next slide, please. Interconnects our ecosystems. Well, what is an ecosystem? What does it consist of? So an ecosystem starts off with a species. And a species is something that can interact with itself and produce fertile offspring. That's what a species is. That's what it does. When you get a number of species of the same thing, it's a population. That's what you end up with, a population of things. Within that population, you could end up with many different species that all live together. They all cooperate with each other, they all need each other, and they swap and interchange and do all their stuff. That's called a community. So in the wild, it's called a community. We use that word quite a lot in this modern age. We've got a community of people. And what that community means, if you can rightly see between all of us now, is that we all need somebody else in our world to help us thrive the best we can. Andy's a plumber. I need a plumber sometimes, so I've got to go and see the plumber, mate. That's what he does. You know, these guys hunt, I need these. So together we all bring our different skills, our own different ways of being, our own different thoughts, and we share these together. And with that shared knowledge, you form a strong community which thrives because you're exchanging goods. The individual on his own may know a lot, but he will never be as successful as a good community together. Never. It never works. Okay, unless you're a massive introvert and you're a hermit and you got to live in the woods or something on your own. Which is working. That's me. Yeah. So, therefore, then you've got this community, and the community then live in what we call a habitat or an environment. It's where they live. It's what they do. And when you bang the two together, you will end up with an ecosystem. So, the habitat, I mean, it's abiotic. It's not a living thing. Everything else is a living thing. And there's your community. And you bang the two together, there's your ecosystem. Within an area, you can get many ecosystems that touch each other and they'll slightly cross over. Not far, but just enough. And that's called a biome. That deciduous woodland out there is a biome. It has different ecosystems all touching each other. And around the world, I think there's about 12 different ones. You know, from Amazon rainforest to deserts to, you know, savannas, Arctic. They're just examples of what a biome is. So there's your system. That's what you're part of. You're part of all of that, this ecosystem that works. And the balance of nature relies upon these intricate connections. Without them, it doesn't work. It falls apart. Nothing left. It's gone. Okay. Above ground connections, food webs, predator relationship. This diagram here, I nicked it. It's not my own work, seriously. It's not. But this basically says it all. So, an ecosystem that is healthy, productive, it becomes resilient. And it provides many different services to us as human beings. Supporting. So, one of the things we're going to talk about is nutrient recycling, what we're doing here. Photosynthesis, soil formations, water recycling. Then you've got your regulating, what nature does for us. It regulates temperature, for one. That's another subject for another day. Food control, temperature control, pollination. And what that does then, it gives us a provision. It helps us when we use these stuff, food, fire, medicine, timber, other products that the natural world will give us freely. She works hard and she goes, look guys, look, you need this stuff. Help yourselves. Have a nice time with it. Okay, I want to help you. Culturally, what does that mean? We're going to do that this afternoon, we're going to walk around. It's your well-being, your health, recreation. Who's a mountain biker? Hands up, yeah, we'll go for it. Let's go tearing through on our bikes and have a nice time. But it's there for us to do that. Okay? If we as people, as human beings, or roe deer, or anything else, take too much of this, the provisioning, that will come down to here, and the scale's gone. It's balanced, it's not there anymore, it's gone, you've lost it. This is what happens. It dies. And guess what? You'll die with it. You'll go with it. If you don't have balance right, you're finished. Okay. So, this is what we're on right now. We're all munching away at that stuff. No, so how does it work? So these are food chains. This is a food chain here. There are two primary things missing from this diagram. Does anybody know what the first one would be?
Yes.
Sorry?
Humans.
Humans are in there, yeah, you're right. There's no human beings on this one. And there's something else that's critical to this
Sunshine.
Top marks.
Yay.
Top marks. Without the sun,
Yeah.
no life on Earth exists. Nothing. It can't. It's impossible. Doesn't work. So what's a food chain? Okay, it's there. You can see what it does. So these are plants. All the green that you see around us, and they're called producers. And these producers are the foundation for all life on Earth after the sun. Without the plants and without the green, you as human beings can't live. You won't be around, you'll die. You then get a thing called a primary consumer, which goes up the scale a little bit. And they eat plants. That's their main thing. Great stuff. A roe deer is a primary consumer, because it eats plants. Okay? The secondary consumer, we're now going into the carnivores. And the carnivores are what eat meat. We all know that, it's not a problem. And so it goes on and up and up and up and up and on. Now, you will notice this, or you may not have noticed, there's something in this chain that is quite relevant to the life. And if you haven't noticed it, you will today. There is more of this at this end than there is at that end. There's more of it. Down this end, they get all of their energy from the sun. How much of that sun's energy do you think we get as a percentage?
Through the food chain.
Very
Totally. How much energy from the sun do we actually get and use as a percentage? How much do you think it's going to be?
Maybe not even 1%.
yes, low.
Close. It's between 1 and 3% of the sun's energy comes down, gets used up in this plant. through photosynthesis. That's what it does. It gets its energy in and it photosynthesizes. The next step up, how much of the energy from that do you think he gets as a percentage?
So 90%.
10. So 90% stays here. This guy only gets 10% of the energy from that plant to sustain his life. Him, what does he get?
20%.
No. He only gets 10% of him. And so on up the food chain. So as it goes up and up and up, the energy that was down here has been dispersed and weakened until it gets to this one here. You can only really get 5 stages in a food chain because it's just not enough energy. You cannot go any more than that. Here, you think, well, how does he survive? There's a reason for that. Doesn't do bugger all. These top guys up here, when you look at them, first of all, there aren't many of them. You don't see many tigers, you don't see many top predators lying around, lynxes, you don't see many. Because there's not enough energy further down the food chain for them all to survive. And these up here are always given something that other animals don't have. They've got weapons. They've always got sharp teeth, claws, nasty pieces of work, because they need to be efficient. You will find them sleeping most of the day, kipping. They don't go on the hunt, you know. Most men are like that sometimes. Oh, my husband's a top predator, is he? Lying on the sofa. But that's the reason why. I mean, because there's just not enough. There's not enough energy to be lots of them. And that's what happens. Goes down the food chain. And below this guy here, there's other stuff going on. We'll get that in a minute. So yeah, so there's no sun up here. Without the sun, he can't grow. He can't eat. In this food chain, we've got herbivores, which only eat plants. You've got carnivores, which only eat meat. And then you've got the omnivore, who's opportunist and it can eat almost anything. It can eat plants, it can eat meat, it can eat berries, it can eat whatever it wants within reason. Energy, then, if you want to be strong and have more energy, you need to get your food source down here, amongst the plants, the beans, because that's where most of the nutrients are, or the energy is. So when you first have your lettuce and your thing, you're getting most of it. You know, you're not at this end.
As long as it's not being extensively farmed.
We'll go on to that.
Right.
We'll get on to that, yeah. So, as I said, you would rightly say the human being's here. Okay? The human being can eat nearly all of that. And what do I say about top predators? There aren't many of them. Only a few, unless you're a human being.
Yeah.
And there are thousands and millions and billions of us munching our way through the world. Because there's no breaks. You know, we can just crack on and do what we want to do. And then you've got a problem, because it can't sustain itself long enough. So then we have to go back to how do we become efficient? So, an efficient food chain would be 3. A primary, a herbivore, and then a carnivore. So, efficient food chain would be grass, cow eats grass, man eats cow. Very efficient, because you've only got 3 stages there, more comes in. Now, we've always said that you can only get 10% of whatever your next below you is on the food chain that you can eat. So, how does the farmer or the world sustain this massive influx of people? It needs to increase the volume of what you're eating. And how it does that is the farmer's quite clever. So what he will do is he will stop his cow from running around too much because it burns up energy, far too much energy. It doesn't want to waste any of it. Because the energy that's left over after your respiration or rest of it for you to survive is called your biomass, and that's your growth. It's what's left. If you eat too much food, you will have a massive biomass, which means you'll get bigger and bigger. Okay? So what the farmer does, he doesn't want his cow running around too much because he doesn't want it wasting too much energy. So he keeps it closed in so it doesn't waste its time. And he keeps it warm so it doesn't have to regulate its temperature too much. And then what it will do is, he will very cleverly feed it something that it doesn't have to waste too much energy on. He'll feed it until it gets bigger. That way you've got profit. More meat, more food, more profit. And that's why they do it. Cruel, it's horrible. They put things in cages, lock them up. Don't want to run around too much. And overfeed them. So that's what happens there. So yeah, that animal over here, this human animal, has gone through that lot and you need to feed it. So the farmers go, right, say what we do, let's make it bigger. Feed more of them. You get more meat, more crops, more whatever you want to do. So that's food chains and food webs. And as you can see, they're interlinked. One of these dies, he doesn't eat. He doesn't eat. He doesn't eat. We don't eat. So it's important that we look after this. The bottom end of the food chain. Human beings, and I'm not a vegetarian, I'm not promoting any of this stuff, realistically don't need meat. You don't need it, to live. It's nice to have, people like it, they taste it. You can get your iron and stuff, so people say, you've got to eat iron, yeah, you can get iron from vegetables all day long, not a problem.
Nettles for iron, more iron in nettles than there is in spinach.
Exactly that. Okay, so this is based, that's your food webs, and that's how that works, that's the reason it works. Okay. Now, here we go. Below ground connections. This is the fascinating bit. Well, it is for me. I love it. Okay. So, underneath our feet is a world that's going on. And what this world does, this is life in here. This is what sustains all of life. It's in the soil. It's in the recycling of energy. And if you don't know this, there's only a finite amount of energy in the whole world. Energy can't be destroyed. It can change its form and we can move it around a bit, but it can't be destroyed. So there's only a finite amount of energy in the world. So in a deciduous woodland, what will happen is that your tree in the winter time goes, I've had enough. It's getting too cold for me. I want to conserve energy. And it will drop all its leaves on the floor. It's called leaf litter. You'll see it everywhere. Also amongst that are the casualties of life. Dead animals, dead insects, poo, all that kind of stuff. It's all building up. Now, if we didn't have these recyclers going on, we're going to be right up here in it. Deep, deep, deep in it. So we need things, we need creatures and we need animals and we need bacteria and stuff to recycle that energy. And what happens first of all, these things are called detrivores. So detrivores are things like worms, snails, fungi. It's a living thing. And what it will do is they will take the first process, they'll break all this stuff down into little usable bits and they secrete their poo. It's broken down even further. So that's why you don't see it. We're talking about the deer guts and stuff that are left behind. It doesn't take long for nature to get hold of that and recycle that energy. It breaks it back down into compounds that can be used. After them, my favourites are the saprotrophs. Now, saprotrophs are little tiny bacteria, don't even see them. And what they do is amazing. Absolutely amazing. So a saprotroph can't eat directly like we do and secrete. What it does, it puts out an enzyme. And that enzyme breaks down the nutrients even further so that your plant can use it. Feed the plant these new nutrients. One of the things about life that you cannot live without in your system, first of all, you need carbon. And that's what all this stuff is. Most of it's carbon anyway. Water is another thing. And a crucial element of all this is nitrogen. You cannot live without nitrogen. You need it because what it is, it throws ammonia acid, ammonia, and then you get into your different kinds of acids and stuff. Ammonia that builds your protein levels up that then affect your DNA. As human beings and all creatures on Earth, including plants, cannot process nitrogen directly. The air that we breathe is 75% nitrogen, but we can't use it. We haven't got the enzymes, we can't use it. But these little bacteria, what they'll do is they will take that little molecule and they'll break into it and they'll open it up and they will change its chemical compound to nitrite and nitrates and amino acids. Very clever little thing. But there's a problem. Those enzymes do not like oxygen. It kills them. So these little bacteria have gone, right, I don't want to die. I want to get on, you know. So it's gone to a plant and it's gone, look, me and you need a deal here. Okay, I need carbon and I want your glucose and you need my nitrogen. So what it does then is it'll go to the roots of the plant and it forms globules inside the plant that protect it from oxygen. So when it breathes, and when it breathes out this stuff, it says to the plant, there you go. And it will entwine itself into the root of the plant and feed it. So it's not only is it feeding the plant's looking after it. So there's your symbiosis. It goes, right, thank you very much. The plant then takes up that nitrogen, grows. You've all heard that with plants, and you put like the nitrogen, it gets big. Of course it will. That's what it's there for. So it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. So then it's happy. We then come along and we can eat it directly ourselves, and that's how we get our nitrogen. Or the roe deer comes along, he eats a plant, we eat the roe deer, and we get our nitrogen from the deer. So that's the cycle. And the energy cycle is the same thing. Constantly goes in, is used, goes down, recycled, back in again, up and down. So there's the complete cycle of life. Now these little bacteria also are very clever because they want the host, the plant, to live. They need it and the plant needs it. So what it does then is you have a thing called phytopathogens, and they're not so friendly things, you know, they want to kill everything. They're nasty pieces of work. So these little bacteria go, tell you what, I'm having none of it. This is what I'm going to do for you. They will send up a gas into the air because it's the quickest way it can spread the language. Gas goes across the field, across where it goes, touches all the plants. Plants go, gotcha, we've got, it's coming in. And the plant then ups its protection, its toxins, whatever it does to protect itself, sheaves it, goes, right, coming in. And that's how they survive. They don't get so much damage, they live. The other way that it does it is it will send out another enzyme that way, and believe it or not, they're antibiotics. These little bacteria send out antibiotics to kill the pathogens before they get to the plant, because it wants the plant to live. Amazing. Absolutely fascinating. This goes on. So it's quite important that they're there. When we go into the woods later on, you pick up one handful of leaf litter. There is more of these little bacteria in that one little handful than there are human beings on this planet. There are billions of them in one little teaspoon, all doing their stuff together. So there's your connection. So they've got a defence mechanism. They work together to help each other. The worms in them recycle the debris, comes in, recycle the nutrients. Plants have nutrients, we eat that, we go down, back into the soil, back round again. So there's a continuing cycle of self-supporting energy. Okay. As I said, I'm skipping over this quite quick. But, okay, let's go on the magic of mushrooms. This is a subject on its own. I'm going to do a talk on this. This is fascinating.
We'll be the co-host.
I'm going to be, I'm going to do another talk later on in the year if you want to come and listen to it maybe. And we're going to do this on mushrooms. These are also saprotrophs. And they're very, very clever. What these will do is they've got a thing called hypha. And the hypha is a very small tube, tiny, you can't even see it with your eyes. And they're hollow. And what they do is they all connect to each other. And it's called mycelium. It's white normally, you'll see it. It spreads like that. And what this mycelium does is it links all the plants together in a certain area. And it feeds the trees. The trees go, I need a certain amount of this stuff. And the tree goes, gotcha. So the mycelium goes, right. And it goes. In return, the trees supply it with nutrients and look after it. If there's a problem within that web, within that circle, a tree will say to the mycelium, I want you to go and help Dave down there. Dave's in a bit of trouble. He's got a bit of a disease or he's thirsty. Give him some of mine. And so the mycelium go, right, no problem. Dave, we're coming. And so down it goes, back out the tree, along the network, goes into the plant, into the next tree. And it looks after it, it nurtures it. On the edge of a woodland, if one of the babies grows too far out of the canopy and it's a bit exposed to the wild sunlight, the other trees then send it water, food, through this mycelium network. Give it its medicine. Give it every opportunity it has to grow. Protect it. The older trees, when they've nearly finished or they're dying, or they think they're going to die, what they'll do is they take their nutrients out of themselves, pass it down into the network, and give it to the next generation. Feed them so they get stronger. Quite an amazing thing. And this is going on all the time, it never stops. It's continuous. Okay. We've gone through this. Okay. Yes. Okay. Human impacts. Well, we've already said, we're successful as a creature, as a biological being. We're successful. Too successful in some ways. Too good for our own boots. It's not our fault. We've just been that way. So we've been programmed. We've done our best. But we are not. We are conscious beings. We have a choice. We're not silly. If we choose to ignore, then that's our business. And I think as a whole, we've kind of done that. The negative consequences of human activities, the biggest and most consequent is agriculture. Agriculture will probably kill the world in the end. Quite a sad thing. How much land is used to raise meat products? How much of the farming agricultural land is used to make meat products? How much do you think?
About 85%.
Yeah, most of it.
But that's realistically, isn't it like 100 though? Because we have to grow everything that's grown is grown for us or them, and then
More or less. You're more or less right. 3/4 of the land is used mainly just to house those animals. Just to house them. 3/4 of it. The other quarter of agriculture is left to crops. But guess what? A quarter of those crops are grown specifically, as I said earlier on, to feed the other animals, because they want this biomass. They don't want the animal losing too much energy, so they grow these specific crops to give the animal so it digests all of it. What happens then? You've got habitat destruction, pollution, climate change. This habitat destruction, what you're going to do then is you get rid of your biodiversity. That key element we spoke about in the beginning that links everything together, that sustains life. The moment you start ploughing fields is you're releasing carbon into the air. What you're not doing then is you're not putting back the leaf litter, you're not putting back that recycling of life. You've taken it all. It's all gone. So then what do you do? I know, we'll stick some artificial stuff on it and let that go for a while. Let's do that. Let's spray it with stuff. Let's keep it all good. But unfortunately then, what the soil does, it binds life together, retains water, it retains humus and all that kind of stuff, where a ploughed field doesn't do that. You get runoff. The water then rains, it goes into rivers, lakes, it goes everywhere. Spread everywhere. Not one person here hasn't got any of that in their body anyway. We've all got it in us now. Too late. We can change. Also, those ploughed fields, what don't they do? They don't photosynthesize anything. They don't lock carbon up. They're just bouncing energy back up. They're not locking anything back into the ground. So what we're doing today, now, farmers and around the world, a few scientists that I'm now following, they are encouraging the world to, and farmers especially, to do what's called second cropping. Cover crops, they're called. So you'll come along, yes, you'll get your main crop, and then what you'll do straight away is you'll plant a cover crop so that it maintains its ability to survive itself and retain its energy. And even that still then they're going, right, okay, well one, then you end up with monocrop. There's no biodiversity because you've got one plant. So now we're encouraging, let's put 12 cover crops in one field. Let's do that. Oh, right, we've got biodiversity. Pollination. This is great, lovely, okay. We don't even have to plough it back in again. What we do is we can plant straight over the top of it, plant goes up, comes down again, we can harvest it, it's all good, the cycle keeps going. Amazing. But we're not doing it. We haven't done it for years and years and years. We thought we were too clever, thought too big. So that's what's happened. You know, we've taken up swathes and swathes and swathes of land and we've not put anything back. Sad. Urgent need for conservation and restoration efforts to protect these ecosystems and restore them. If 3/4 of land's being used by the farmers in agriculture to do that, which then we need to go and see and say, look, hang on a minute, yes, we have to feed everybody, but there must be a better way. Rewilding. We talked about earlier on. Increasing biodiversity. Very important. Next slide. Conservation and rewilding. Conservation efforts are aimed to protect and restore these ecosystems that have been destroyed. Bit of a small problem with it. Arguments are kicking off all over the place. What's the best way to do this? How do we do it? And unfortunately, as human beings, we have this nature within us to cuddle what we love. The things that we don't necessarily like too much get kicked. We don't need that. Let's have the fluffy things, the nice things that we want. Let's reintroduce them, and there's our conservation. Conservation groups now are getting together and saying, well, look, actually, we need the biodiversity within the ecosystems to maintain the system. We can't just pick the nice things that we want and put those in. It doesn't work that way. Rewilding involves reintroducing key species to restore the natural balance of life. We as the Wellderness, we're trying to do that. You know, that's what we're out there trying to do. There's a lot of controversy about them because as good intentions are people might have to rewild, with the lack of knowledge about how that system works, they're putting the wrong things in the wrong places. the wrong species is in the wrong places. You end up with a lower problem then because you've introduced something that shouldn't be there. And then you get invasive species that then kick in, mess up the biodiversity of the whole ecosystem. So knowledge, you need to know what you're doing, you need to know your area well, you need to know what the species were there in the first place. You need to really understand how it all works, because if you don't, you could also mess it up. You know, even with your good intentions.
I'm going to just jump in on the word rewilding because it's a massive trigger word and stuff at the moment, and the source of a lot of debate. And for some people, their understanding of what rewilding means is that I just stop doing anything, I'll stop doing bugger all, it's over to nature now. The balance, as Mick's described, the balance is already tipped. So it's not appropriate to just hand it straight back over to nature. It needs to be a careful restoration of the key species, exactly what Mick's slide says. That restore that natural balance. So be careful not to fall into rewilding. That means I just don't cut anything, mow anything, I never dig nothing, I don't do bugger all, it's over to nature. We've already done damage, so rewilding is to undo that damage.
Yeah. And one of the things as a gardener that I get asked a lot about is, especially now it's trendy, these wild flower meadows. I want a wild flower meadow. Oh, okay, cool, okay. And they go off, they go to B&Q and they buy the wildflower meadow box of seeds. And they go, they chuck it on the ground and go, where's my meadow? And I go, it don't work like that. You know, these things take hundreds of years to develop. Those things you see in the films, and these lovely pictures, they take hundreds of years to develop. They're massive. But also they're introducing species of plant that don't belong here. You know? Yes, very well, the bee will come along and the insects will come along and they'll go, great, I'll have some of that. But you're messing up the natural biodiversity of the natural fauna and fauna in the area. Messed it up. So you've got to be careful. Even in Surrey now, you know, if I go and do a rewilding project and I'm doing a meadow for somebody in their lovely garden, is I tell them, look, let me get your seed for you. Let me get the species that belong here naturally. And they think that a wildflower meadow's there all year. No, it lasts about 6 weeks for the whole year. The rest of it just looks like grass, long grass. And they go, where's all my flowers? You go, well, it doesn't work like that. You've got to manage it, you've got to look after it. A wildflower meadow, when it's fully grown, just as it's just about to go, you think, you've got to cut it down. Chop it, let the seeds go back into the ground and leave the ground there as it is. Because what that then does, what happened in the past was we'd have animals that would graze all over that and then spread it that way. But people don't want animals running around their garden and doing that kind of stuff. So they leave it. And so, yeah, I spend a lot of my time now, you know, encouraging people to wildlife their gardens. Get some biodiversity there. Now, I've got clients who've got these lovely, great, big, long, stripy green lawns that are about this long. Yeah, look at my lovely house. Not interested. Go away. I'll show you something that's beautiful, shall I? And I spend my time making these wildflower meadows. Then they get to see the beauty and diversity. Oh, look, there's a butterfly. Oh, there's a moth. Oh, what's all this? And you go, oh yeah, there you go. Have some of that. That's what rewilding is. Introducing, getting biodiversity back into your bin. One of my things that I really hated much of all was when I went to the top of the Shard. I can't bear sissies. Horrible. But they're necessary. Went to the top of the Shard, looked across the top of London, all I could see was rooftops with nothing on them, apart from extractor fans and what they call them, air conditioning units and all that kind of stuff. Little tiny pockets. Someone had the bright idea, oh no, let's stick some plants on the top. You could rewild the whole of London. Imagine that. Imagine the carbon it would catch. You wouldn't need any ULEZ cameras. No? 2,650 ULEZ cameras. What about 2,650 trees? How much carbon is that going to catch? And if you build it into your building regulations that you need to have a diversity in your building, that you've got to rewild this somehow. You know? Okay. Next one. Improving our connection with nature. And this is what we're going to get into outside in a minute. The benefits of fostering a deep connection to nature to you as a person, as an individual, is immense. Absolutely immense. In a world that we live in now that commands our attention constantly through the phone, through your screens, through your work, through all that kind of stuff, it doesn't give you the time or the space to relax and think. It's constantly wanting your attention. When you connect to this thing, this nature, it has a natural ability to do something for you. It will calm your mind straight down, and there's a reason for that. And that reason is if you go to a city or a town or anywhere, your mind is constantly on guard. It's looking out all the time. You have to negotiate people, traffic, there's signs flashing, there's lights everywhere, there's things to be done, there's screens, there's this, there's that, so your mind's constantly going shh. The moment you walk into a woodland or a beach or anywhere else, it's all taken away from you. There's nothing to look at. There's no attention. So naturally your mind's going to go, it's going to calm down. The trees I spoke about up in here, they give off energy. They give off aromatherapy, believe it or not. No, they do. And when you walk along, you're breathing that in. You've got a connection called Alkali back of here, but that's another story. But that's why you feel better when you go into nature. It's because you're not on guard. In fact, you're in awe. You're looking at things with a new light. Your gaze will soften. Even if you want to go, to think, you may not be connected to nature totally, but your mind's softened down enough. It takes away the distractions, gives you a clear thinking mind. So when you come out of the woods and you go, wow, I feel great. I've had a good old think. I'm good to go. And then there's the next level where you don't think at all, and you just sense. You go back to your primitive state, where the mind just turns off, and you use all your senses, your eyes, your nose, your ears, your skin. Feel it, and that will calm you right down. Tips for spending time outdoors. Come and join the Wellderness. Come and have a cup of tea in the woods. Spend your time with us and have a nice time. Practicing mindfulness in nature. That's what I'm talking about, this switching the stuff off. Turn your mind off for a little bit. Go out and support these conservation initiatives. Be part of it. Get yourself involved. Don't just go home and go, do you know what, it doesn't matter. There's plenty of other people doing it. No, it's important for you to do that. Because the moment you do it, you're giving something back, and there's a reward to that. Education. Awareness and action. Again, the Wellderness will do that. For me personally, this whole subject should be in school, alongside mathematics and English. Mm-hmm. It's that important. And encourage other people. That's what I'm doing today. I'm trying to encourage other people to get out there, connect with other people and say, look, this is important. This is your home. It's where you live. It will sustain your life. It will sustain you. It will look after you. It will give you medicine. It will do all that stuff. It's your life. It belongs to you. You're entitled to be out there. Don't separate yourself from it. Okay. Now, when we go into the woods today, as I said, I don't want to give you any knowledge. Not really. I will do talks on that later on. We'll do tree identifications. We'll do mycology and look at the mushrooms and all that kind of stuff. Look at the insects and kick them around a little bit and play with them. Today I want you to go into the woods with a different mindset. I want you to experience nature. Nature's a very curious thing. It wants to introduce itself to you. It's watching you constantly. Always, it's curious, it wants to know who you are. The moment you go in there, it knows who you are, it goes, no thank you, maybe none of this. But if you go in there and you be quiet and you slow down, stop and look, listen, smell and see, like I said, with all your senses, it will come to you and it will show itself to you in magnificent ways that you cannot believe. Be curious. think like a child. You know, we were all children. All of us were. That ability to go out into the world with curiosity and want to touch everything and smell it and poke around it, you don't really don't touch that. No, get involved in it, get your hands dirty, get in there, sniff it, smell it, play with it, do what you want to do. Hug a tree, you know, talk to a plant. Hey, listen, they'll talk to you all day long. But it's curious and it wants you to touch it, and it wants to touch you. Okay. That's all right. That's all right. I'm just going to go up and down that one very quickly. I've written something down that I actually quite liked. Okay, conclusion. Nature's connections above and below ground are vital for our society, our survival and well-being. Now you can see that's quite obvious now. You know, big farmers, big crops, big pharmaceutical companies. We need them at the moment, but the way they're doing it needs to be changed. And I think that we can do that as a people by our choices. If you don't buy it, you don't want it, they can't sell it.
Also with the cash crops and them,
Yeah.
it doesn't get a chance to properly connect in with a nice cellular network.
No.
And
No.
And
Yeah,
how-
that's why we're doing cover crops now, so you don't disturb the soil. It's another talk that we're doing at some point. It's about no-dig gardening and composting and all the rest of it, and how to grow your plants without even touching the soil. Far better yields without digging your allotments up. And we must recognise our place in this intrinsic web and take action to protect and restore it. We'll probably go all be all right in our lifetimes. My grandchildren's children. If you've got children now, and they're going to have children, we're going to have to need to change this. Okay, I just want to read you something that I heard the other day that it kind of touched me a little bit, and I thought, well, that's kind of cool, man. Quite like it. It's this: the mystery of life is not a problem to be solved, but a reality to experience. A process that cannot be understood by stopping it. We must move with it, the flow of the whole process. We must join it, and we must flow with it. Thank you. That's it. Let's go for a walk.